News Talk 820 WBAP now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. All right, y'all. Here we are, and I wanted to get right into it. The big story of the day is Hunter Biden found not guilty on every single count. I'm sorry, found guilty on every single count. What's wrong with me? Hunter Biden found guilty on every single count, all three counts, and false statement in the purchase of a gun, making a false statement related to information required to keep a federally licensed gun dealer, possession of a gun by a person who is an unlawful user or an addicted to a controlled substance. So it's funny, the reaction on this, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. How did the family react? Sitting in the front row there. Where was now to Dr. Jill? What did she say? Etc. But the big story is he was found guilty. And I'm the one who, for several days and for like a week, has been telling you I don't think he's going to be found guilty because the jury pool is so pro-Biden. But it was obvious. It was obvious they needed to convict. And so I want to say I'm grateful for this. And it's up in the air as to whether or not he'll go to prison. Here's a big deal. He did not admit guilt in this. He pleaded not guilty, which is his right to do it, but he could have saved himself. You know, the federal sentencing guidelines, it's a little nebulous for most of us, including myself, me chiefly, but the federal sentencing guidelines say that you get points, right? You get points added on, which is bad. You get points taken off. You get 2 points taken off your record if you admit your guilt and show remorse. He did not. So as far as sentencing guidelines, he could have gotten a better seat in the catbird seat, but he could have gotten in a better position had he done that. He did not. He fought it and showed no remorse. So here we are. Nobody knows what the sentencing will be. We do know that Judge Noriega in the District of Delaware there for U.S. The judicial system for the United States courts there in Delaware, that she is a Trump appointee and she has played it by the book. So that's good. Whatever happens may happen. I want to ask you some questions on this. Do you think you're going to see Hunter Biden go to prison? It's possible. It's possible that he gets a month or two. I think any jail time would be good for him. I'm not trying to be punitive or a jerk, but I think that some jail time would be good for him. I think it's possible, but a lot of people are saying probably not because he's a nonviolent offender, etc. And number two, do you think Joe will pardon Hunter or commute his sentence? Did you know that commuting? Joe Biden said he would not pardon his son under any circumstances. He did not. He was never asked, has never been asked, will you commute your son's sentence? You know what that means? Conviction stands, you're still guilty, but sentencing thrown out. Okay? So if you commute the sentence, still guilty, still convicted, but no jail. Rutro Rastro, he could commute. Very interesting. I think Joe will unequivocally commute and or pardon after he's reelected and or loses. If he loses, he'll do it before he's out, the last day maybe, and because that's honestly who he is. And if he wins, he'll probably do it in the last month or so, or before he says, okay, I really need to leave the office now, 6 months into it or a year into it, and he's like, which he already is. What do you think here? And last but not least, the big question is, will this affect Trump or Biden's chances of winning in November? I think it's interesting. I actually thought that if Hunter was found not guilty, it would be so rigged, I think it would help Trump. I really do. Now, since he has been found guilty, maybe it's a wash. I like that Trump said something today on this, his statement, which I'll share with you in detail in a little bit. But he said the real focus needs to be on Joe Biden and his corruption in this, not on Hunter. And I think that was really smart. And you're going to see that surface. Do you know that the Catherine Herridge talked about this from CBS News? Some damning information that she shared with on the Hunter Biden tax evasion case in California coming up. I'll tell you about right now and hear from you at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Do you think Hunter's going to go to prison? Would you send him there if you were on the jury? I would. I would give him a month or two, maybe 3 months. And then, because if you get off with good time, federal doesn't give you too much time credit, but I would send him maybe 1 to 3 months, depending on what my judicial experience would say. And do you think Joe will pardon Hunter? Maybe even 6 months. I mean, he triple-fold lied. And then do you think Joe will pardon Hunter or commute his sentence as I do? And lastly, will this affect Trump or Biden's chances of winning the election in November? I don't think it's going to, based on the fact that he was convicted. But what do you think on that, too? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Lines wide open for you at 800-288-WBAP. Now, Catherine Herridge came out today, and she was with Fox News. I've always been a fan of her. She's a straight from the source, straight-laced reporter, and she's fantastic with the Pentagon. She's now with CBS after leaving Fox, unfortunately. But she said this is what she tweeted today, including with the paperwork from the U.S. Attorney's Office in their case in in California, I believe. Listen. Backbone of, this is on my Twitter feed, by the way. Follow me on Twitter at Chris Kroc Show. That's at Chris Kroc Show. Backbone of special counsel gun case was Hunter Biden's laptop user data. Okay? Backbone of the gun case was Hunter Biden's laptop user data. Pending California tax case poses significant potential legal jeopardy for Hunter and his immediate family. This document filed in federal court by David Weiss, who was flushed out and exposed by this Judge Noriega by asking simple questions about how rigged this was, and that made it all get thrown out. But the Weiss's documents filed in this case, and apparently the pending California case, list Hunter Biden as a lawyer, lobbyist, and consultant. She circled that. Catherine Herridge did. And then she says the legal documents filed by the U.S. Attorney's Office, David Weiss, the prosecutor of this, references Ukraine, China, and strongly suggests investigators are exploring potential FARA violations. That's Foreign Agents Registered Act violations. This is what they've gotten some former Trump officials on. I think it was, I can't remember which ones, but, there's a former general, what's his name? I can't remember his name. But if you are lobbying, you are a foreign agent lobbying another government on behalf of our government or on behalf of your own interests as a lobbyist, okay? FARA is if you're a paid lobbyist and you're lobbying you're helping another country with their policies for the U.S. Hunter was doing that clearly, unequivocally, and he failed to register. That's a very serious violation. I think I don't know the exact punishment on that, but that's the most serious of them all, next to tax evasion, which he's got big trouble for that too. And we're going to see all the stuff about strippers, prostitutes. He lied about that, expenses on the golf course, everything. So in that case, you might see a FARA violation, even though it's it's past the statute of limitation. This is fascinating. And this could be damning. We don't know. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. 3 lines open. Chime in right now. Rogers in Bedford, you're on 820 AM and now 93.3 FM on WBAP.
Hey, hello? You know what I'm thinking? I wouldn't put it past these stinking Democrats to be using Hunter Biden as a scapegoat and said, if he's going to prison, why can't Trump go to prison? And then once the election's over, his dad's going to just let him go.
So you're saying they're going to take, you think the Democrats are going to take a public approach of saying, since he's going, Trump's got to go?
Exactly. I wouldn't put it past them. I think it's all, this is all something that they've planned, and they said, hey, now no one can get mad if Trump goes to prison because Hunter had to go to prison. That's
interesting. Now, here's the thing. I don't know when sentencing is. I know that Trump's is 2-3 days before the RNC in mid to late. It's kind of mid-July. So I don't know if Hunter's sentencing date is going to be before that or after it. Based on the timeline with Trump's sentencing date, well, that's the New York State Trump sentencing date. I'm going to have to look when the sentencing date is or estimations are on that. If it happens after Trump's sentencing, it won't matter in that regard. All right. If you were on the jury, would you send? Well, he just dropped. Okay. Well, lines wide open for you at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Do you think Hunter is going to go to prison? Would you send him there if you were the judge in this case? I don't know if the jury's recommending the sentences. I don't think so because they already spoke to the media. That's coming up next. What did juror number 3 and juror number 10 say anonymously to fake news CNN and to Fox News? I will tell you, and I've got some audio of it, and also the media. We have a little montage of the media and of Joe Biden talking today in his speech about gun violence and gun control and new laws and gun storage. It's like, oh, your son got convicted today. Yes, we agree with you. Did you know that Joe signed the law and pushed for it and signed a law that says 10 to 15 years prison time if you violate the law like Hunter did? Ruh-roh, Rastro. All that's coming up next. Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3, 800-288 WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227.
Biden was on trial, and he was just like anybody else. You know, nobody's above the law. You know, no matter who you are. And so that did not play a factor in my decision. It was not politically motivated. If you want to know that, politics played no part in this whatsoever.
Okay, that's one of the jurors, if you can make it out. Politics played no part in it whatsoever. I'm going to give you more juror comments. You're going to hear a little highlight of Joe Biden talking about gun violence and, you know, punishing people for not properly locking them up and background checks. It's great today. And also the media companies comparing, the media folks, kind of a montage of different ones comparing the Biden vote today, the conviction versus the Trump one. Bill in Pottsboro, you've called in at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227, asking, do you think he'll go to prison? Would you send him there? And do you think Joe will pardon Hunter or commute his sentence now that he's been convicted today? And how will this affect the Trump or Biden chances of winning in November? Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think, I'm hoping that Trump wins without question. But, this is one of those live by the sword, die by the sword. Joe Biden did. It was his idea, or he was certainly a signer of the bill that said, hey, mandatory minimum. Yeah, absolutely. Mandatory deal. So, you know what? Guess what? You said it, and he just needs to get it, based on principle, just because of his words. So, of course, we're expecting Democrats to be honorable, so we can throw that crap out the window. But anyway, I absolutely think he should go to jail for it, regardless of whether he's a violent offender or not. He could have been. That's one of the things they're trying to do. And they're such they hate guns and that people have guns, and then he just violates that law like that. He just needs to absolutely go to prison for it. And I don't know for how long, but certainly for the mandatory minimum that Joe signed up for.
Well, it says he enhanced when he signed this. I think it was his bill. If it wasn't, he was rabidly behind it. But he also, it was his, I believe it was his baby. If not, it was his big thing. But he signed it and he supported 110%, pushed for it. Now, it's not a minimum from my recollection. It is a enhancer and making it more of a punishment from 10 to 15 years. I think it may have taken it 5 years up or 10 years up from what it was. And so here's his son. Now, I don't think there's not a minimum in this with a first-time offender and such, but I think the fact that he pleaded not guilty and showed no remorse shows that there's some serious stuff. Also, I think this is going to affect, you got to wonder, I'm not a legal expert, you got to wonder, though, but I am on the radio. You got to wonder, though, now that he's a convicted felon, how will that play out in his sentencing in the next trial? Because it'll be a double convicted felon.
Yeah, it's going to be bad, and I'll tell you what. The thing that's going to make it the worst, and you were bringing this up earlier, is the fact that now they can't say that the laptop was Russia collusion. It was actually used in the conviction of this, and so now everything that's on that laptop is now admissible. And he's got all kinds of problems now. It's now admissible
that's what Catherine Herridge was saying. It's now admissible in the tax trial coming up in California in a month or so. That one is also in the documents, in the prosecution documents. They say that Hunter is a Yale-educated lawyer, lobbyist, and consultant. She circled that and highlighted it from the legal documents, and she said, backbone of a special counsel gun case was Hunter Biden's laptop user data. Pending California tax case poses significant potential legal jeopardy for Hunter and his immediate family. Calls him a lobbyist, references Ukraine, China. Strongly suggests investigators exploring potential FARA, Foreign Agents Registration Act violation, which is years in prison. And that's Herridge, who is a Pentagon reporter, and also That's her tweet, and I retweeted on my Twitter feed at Chris Crock Show. That's at Chris Crock Show. Anyways, so Bill, you would sentence him to jail. Will Biden do you think Joe will pun it? I can't talk. Do you think Joe will pardon Hunter or commute a sentence?
I don't think he'll pardon him, but I do believe he'll absolutely commute a sentence. And honestly, I got to tell you, I would too. If I was a dad, that's what I would do. I mean, I regardless of right, wrong, or indifferent, it's his son.
Yes, and he could, and the commutation means you're still guilty, but you don't have to go to jail. I could totally see that. And then will this affect Trump or Biden's chances of winning in November? I don't think so. You?
Well, I think it will, and I think it will because the next trial happens before the election, immediately before the election. And if you go back to 2020, they said that I think it was, in fact, I heard it on BAP. They said that 17% of the people would have changed their vote had they known the laptop was real.
Yeah, I've been sharing that for several years now since it came out. So this would have changed the election results. Now it's okay to come out because maybe people. And by the way, all the leftist news media, Dana Perino was saying on the 5 Today on Fox. All the leftist news media is not saying anything about this. They're not embarrassed or contrite about having these 50 former one intel people that lied, and they're still having them on like everything's normal. Second of all, those intelligence people should be stripped of their abilities, their clearances. Many of them, if not all, still have it, and it's disgusting. They literally lied to us and rigged an election by lying to us. So,
well, they should be brought up on charges.
I agree. If they can't be charged, they should lose their clearances and should be publicly flogged, at least not literally, but should be flogged publicly. Thank you for your call. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you think Hunter is going to end up going to prison now he's been convicted? Would you send him there? And do you think Joe will pardon Hunter or commute his sentence? And will this affect Trump or Biden's chances of winning in November? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Also, I'm going to tell you verbatim what some of the jurors said, stuff that you haven't heard yet from what I played. Also, you're going to hear Joe Biden rave about gun violence and new gun laws as his son is convicted today in that realm. And then also the media comparing Hunter to Trump in the trial. Also coming up next, this is something I want to get into big time. Dallas, we're going to talk about homelessness and public housing. Like, should we use housing as a solution for homelessness? I have a case that happened in Dallas that proves we should not. You do not want to miss this. This is going to be quite a fascinating discussion coming up next as well on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
By the way, it's time we establish universal background checks and require the safe storage of firearms. We should hold families responsible if they don't provide those locks on those guns. Who in God's name needs a magazine which can hold 200 shells? If you need 12 to 100 bullets in a gun in a magazine, you're the lousiest shot I've ever heard. And by the way, if they want to think to take on government if we get out of line, which they're talking again about, well, guess what? They need F-15s. They don't need a rifle.
First of all, my friend, one of the weapons I carry lawfully, legally, with a permit, even though I don't need one, is a gun that holds 12 in a magazine and 1 in the chamber. That's 13, Joe. So you would take away my personal protection weapon, a handgun. This man doesn't know his bum from a hole in the ground, to put it nicely. And then he talks about 200. He mentioned something like 200 rounds or something in a magazine, or 1,000 rounds in a magazine. Again, he doesn't know his bum from a hole in the ground. And you know these evil mass shooters that have like these drum things they try to shoot up. They're so stupid. They don't realize when you have something that's got 100, 200 round drum thing on it, that's so likely to jam. People that use those don't know what they're doing, in my humble experience. And I'm not an expert, but I've learned from many experts and heard them and seen them talk about it in person. That's just me. Do you think Hunter's going to go to prison? Would you send him there? And do you think Joe's going to pardon Hunter or commute his sentence now that he's been convicted on all counts? And will this affect Trump or Biden's chances of winning in November? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. I got several lines open for you. By the way, the jury speaking out. Juror 10 spoke to fake news CNN, anonymously described how listen to this, only 6 wanted to find Joe Biden's son guilty when they first took the vote on Monday night. Only 6, dude, half of them. But then when they returned Tuesday morning, it was 11-1, with the majority wanting a guilty verdict after just 3 hours of deliberations. Boom. That was very, very quick, by the way. 3 hours means you're toast. That's what little I've understand and what I've heard from experts over the years. The sooner the better. The sooner the better. Well, actually, who knows? Anyways, all I know is that that was quick. Jurors said they had no choice but to make him a convicted felon because of the evidence. One of the jurors thinks he doesn't think the president's son deserves jail time for the offenses. I can't speak for everybody. I speak for myself. It was very sad. Another one said President Biden never really came into play for me because his name was only brought up once during the trial, and that's when I kind of sunk a little bit. Like, oh wow, this is the sitting president's son who's on trial. Like, he didn't even think about that until then. His last name is Biden. And now Dr. Jill is sitting in the front row, crying. She's in a neon purple suit, and then next thing she's like in a neon pink or yellow suit. It was unbelievable. Next thing you know, she's going to show up with flair, like flair, what they call it in the office space, like a flashing name badge. First lady. They have little simulated firecrackers and flashing lights around her name. First lady, not Dr. Jill Biden. By the way, James Biden's face, according to Fox News, when the jury verdict was released, was read off, he was angry. He was angry. This doesn't happen to the Bidens. We get away with everything. And not a Dr. Jill. I'm going to say this right. How dare the jurors and Judge Noriega released the verdict without not a Dr. Jill being there. She was not in the front row. The jury verdict was reached so quickly that a lot of people were not even in the courtroom when the jury verdict was released, was read. And not a Dr. Jill should be outraged that her son, that she was not in the courtroom to weep and bemoan and bewail. Nonetheless, obviously I'm joking with that part, but she probably was outraged. How could they not have me in the courtroom to release this terrible, wrong verdict? All right, Ken in Arlington, you're on 820 AM and now 93.3 FM WBAP. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Chris. Hey, now that if he's been found guilty of the firearm.
3 of them.
So that means
three violations, yeah.
He cannot own a firearm.
Correct, and he can. My understanding, I thought about this today too. I don't think he can be an officer of the court anymore. He's probably stripped of his ability to practice law by being a convicted felon. I don't know, but I would guess that's the case. I could be wrong.
Right, because Trump got his license removed.
Well, Trump's not a lawyer. He never has been a lawyer that I'm aware of.
No, but they removed his conceal and carry permit.
Yes, they did, because he's a convicted felon, which will be over. We all know it's going to be overturned on appeal in 6 to 8 months after the election. Though, go ahead, sir.
And so, if he commutes the sentence, that means he's still a convicted felon. That
yes.
He can't own a firearm. But if he,
pardons him. If he pardons him,
does that mean that his record's wiped, he could still have a gun?
Pardoning means your record is wiped, I believe. And I think, this is a pure speculation because I don't know, but to me that would mean, yes, he could own a firearm because it's pardoned. It's gone. It's wiped out. Governor Greg Abbott pardoned the guy that shot as the Black Lives Matter rioter, terrorist guy was pointing a firearm at him, and then he lawfully defended himself. Governor Greg Abbott pardoned him, if you recall, in Travis County, in Austin courts. About a month or two ago, we talked about that a lot, which is a very strong, big case we talked about. And he absolutely has all of his rights back. He can carry, etc. That's Texas. I'm sure it's the same thing federally. Pardon, I think, means wiped out.
Yeah.
As far as the East is from the West, wiped out.
Sure. Well, I mean, if he doesn't pardon him and he just commutes his sentence, that means that he cannot own a firearm.
I'm sure. I'm sure, but that's the least of it. That's the least of his worries. Going to jail is a big deal. Not running out of money. His sugar daddy, Kevin Morris, the attorney of Hollywood agent guy, he has run out of money. He can't give him any more money, so he's getting his butt handed to him on that as well.
Is that all weapons or just firearm?
What?
Or if it's commuted, that means he can't own a firearm.
I would guess commutation means no, you're out, you're free, you don't have to go to jail. That's all it means. That means you're pardoned. So that my guess is you're right. But the last thing is, Hunter Biden and his Abby Lowell's attorney was claiming that when he was at the Dunkin' Donuts texting about meeting Mookie. By the 7-Eleven, behind the 7-Eleven, they claimed that he was buying coffee and a donut. Do you believe that he was buying a coffee and a donut that morning?
I mean, powdered donuts.
Oh, hold on. I'm a little slow on the draw. All right. Thank you, Ken.
I can sleep from New York.
All right. Get out. Yeah. Wait. Who? Me? What? You talking about me? Get out of here. You're fired. Okay. Take care. I have recuperated my lack of sleep from New York. Actually, I was wrong on my lack of sleep. I want to continue to play the professional victim. I'm very good at that. The first night it was 1 hour of sleep. No, it was 3 hours of sleep the first night. The next night it was 1 hour. And then the final night it was 0. I literally had 0.0.
0.
Because when I got back, I had the privilege. I'll just say a quick thing. I have the privilege, and I am right now mentoring a young man from the university that worked with me on my show there. And I want to encourage you to be looking for a chance to pour into somebody. And this young man it's reinvigorating me. And I told him it helps me, I think, more than it helps him when you mentor somebody. So it is an honor and a thrill to help this young man. And I'm grateful for that. So, and it's reinvigorating me. It's reminding me of who I was at his age, and working on a lot of stuff with him. I did a mock interview with him this morning, and I'm telling you, it's wonderful. So I just urge you to find somebody to mentor. It'll come to you naturally. Don't push hard, but and sometimes you want to, but they're like, they're not available. They're not as passionate or interested. Don't push that. What an honor it is to pour into some of these young men and women, but the young men, it's more appropriate for me, at the university. So I love that. Anyway, okay, coming up next on the Chris Crock Show, what about the homelessness? Is not temporary housing, is our tiny homes or building permanent housing for homeless people, is that effective? We have an answer in a Dallas experience that is in the news today. You do not want to miss this. And then we're going to throw out the question, do you think giving housing to homeless people and panhandlers is the answer to solving homelessness, which is here, everywhere, etc.? And do you trust the homeless to take care of the property they're allowed to stay at? And do you think the problem is rent and housing, period, is so expensive? Oh, I got so much on that with you. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Okay, if you think that giving homeless people a free house, like a tiny home or some kind of housing, and the problem with homelessness is they need housing. California is trying to do that. I don't remember all the numbers, but it's insane what they're doing. All you got to do is look what happened here. Quick, succinctly put, I believe that the reason they're homeless is the reason they cannot, I'm not trying to be mean, is the reason they cannot be trusted to take care of a house that they get for free. And in fact, I think the only way they would actually take care of their property, and I'm saying the overwhelming majority, and probably 95% of them, not being mean again, this is just truthful from my beliefs. The only way they would ever take care of a property is if they clean themselves up and worked hard, pulled themselves up from their bootstraps, and paid for the housing themselves. Okay? People care more about their school when they're in school if they're paying for it. They have skin in the game. People care more about taking care of their car or their house, their things, if they're paying for it, not if it's free. That is including any government program giving you stuff for free. Now, in this case, here's a big chunk of evidence. A building owned, Fox 4 reports this today, a building owned by the city of Dallas, just a short walk from City Hall. It is empty. It's the former Gateway homeless shelter, kind of an irony here. And it's closed down right now, but 20 squatters, 20 quote-unquote homeless people broke into the place. They broke into it. They kicked open the boarded-out windows and stuff, and they were living in it. 20 homeless people were living in this now abandoned shelter, which is Dallas City Council is going to be selling it. And they lived it for months without the city even noticing it. No code violations, nothing. Quote, according to a city council member, quote, toilets overflowing with feces and urine, liquor bottles. Our staff should have spotted, should have been monitored. How we allowed it to get to the condition it is unacceptable. Had this been any other private businesses, they would have been slapped with a citation after citation. We said we need to invest in the past couple of weeks. And additionally, he said for this place that the homeless people went in and destroyed, we have had to invest in the past couple of weeks additional security, making sure the building is secure. So it cannot be trusted for homeless people to break into it. Homeless people went into it and trashed the crap out of it. And this is not the exception, these 20 people. There's defecation and urine overflowing in the toilet seats. There's garbage. There's liquor bottles everywhere, half drank. The piece showed it. So he says, under the same context of this story, we need to bring them into a facility, a tiny home. See, give them housing, give them a house where they're going to be safe from the elements. And by the way, he says the marshal's office in Dallas is performing daily safety inspections and patrols. City planning to use metal plates instead of wood to secure the windows. So if you can't trust these people to not break in and you got to put wooden plates in it and they destroy it, why in God's name would you give them a free house? Now, they might not be owning it, but why would you give them a tiny house? So my question is, do you think giving housing to homeless and panhandlers people, homeless and panhandler folks is the answer? Like California does and Dallas, they want them to have these little tiny homes everywhere. They've been doing this already, I believe. And do you trust the homeless to take care of the property they're allowed to stay at? I don't. I'm not trying to be mean. I don't trust them. There's a reason they're homeless. They can get help if they want to. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But they don't want it. And that's where they're at. And they're not going to treat it well, as I said. And do you think the problem is rent and housing are so expensive? I do not think that's why they're homeless. They're using that excuse too. The people that want to give them free housing in the cities and such, that's an excuse for them. Oh, they can't afford it. I don't think that's the case. I'll explain why. What do you think on this? Do you think giving housing to homeless and panhandlers is the answer? Do you trust the homeless to take care of the property they're allowed to stay at for free from the city? And do you think the problem is rent and housing is so expensive? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Lines wide open. Chime in right now on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Okay. I do not trust the homeless people to take care of it because here's why. There's a reason you're homeless. And a lot of times what people don't understand is the overwhelming people that are homeless are by choice. They are either addicts who want to stay high, and that being high, I mean, look at Hunter. He was a disaster for years. It was unbelievable. If it wasn't for his dad's position in life, he would have been homeless and on Skid Row, most likely, for years. People have to hit, as my mom said. My mom worked in drug and alcohol rehabilitation for years. You have to hit less than zero, is what she said. And that's the movie Less Than Zero way back when. You have to hit rock bottom. And eventually, people either end up dying or hitting rock bottom and saying, I don't want this anymore. And they finally choose to get help. And the standard that you have in how you're living, I could never live on the streets. How could they do that? They're a victim. No. If it means being high and people keep giving them money as panhandlers, they can stay high, live in a minimally distant live in a minimally decent housing situation, which means sleeping on the streets, but always being high, that's a good thing. Now, coming up next on the Chris Crock Show also, I'm going to be sharing with you why living in these homeless shelters, which would transcend also to these free housing that people want to give them, would be dangerous for every occupant. Every occupant it would be dangerous for, and I'm not kidding you. I'll talk about that coming up next. Plus, you can chime in right now. Do you think giving housing to homeless and panhandlers is the answer? And do you trust homeless folks to take care of the property that are given to use for free? And, I mean, is that really the problem? Do you think just the problem is giving them a house to stay in? And do you think the housing costs are so expensive? That's why they're in the system to begin with, because the housing is so expensive, or is it something else? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227.